My name is Bob Cook. I'm the chair of the Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore Council. To start us off, I'm going to ask Luann Mostello, a longtime officer for Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore, and the person who did an enormous amount of work in getting this ceremony put together, to lead us in an opening prayer. Luann?
Thank you, Bob. I have chosen excerpts from A Peacemaker's Prayer by Ken Sand. O Lord God, today I am called to be a peacemaker, but I am unfit for the task. By nature, I am a peace faker and a peace breaker, so I myself need help. Others ask me to understand and guide them, but my ears are dull, my eyes are dim, and I lack the wisdom they need. But you, Lord, have all they need, so I come to you for supply. Fill me with your spirit so that I might benefit from your fruit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Strip me of my own agenda and desires so I might look only to others' good and be absolutely worthy of their trust. Make me creative, versatile, and adaptable so I can adjust to the surprises ahead. Help me to accept others as you have accepted me, and thus bring praise to your name. Give me faith and perseverance, so I will not doubt your provision or abandon your principles, even when others fight against them. Make me just and fair, so that even if people disagree with my counsel, they will believe that I treated them well. In short, Father, please give me the Spirit of Christ so that I might walk in his steps and guide your people into the path of your peace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Luann. That's a great way to get us started and put our spirits into the mode of us all being peacemakers. So I think most of you probably on this call know something about Pax Christi, but I'd like to just say a few words about Pax Christi to get us started for those who may not. So Pax Christi is the International Catholic Peace and Justice Movement, and it was started by a French woman and a French bishop at the end of World War II. They were trying to figure out why followers of Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, had been killing each other for centuries, but especially over the 70 prior years, including 2 world wars in Europe and elsewhere, and especially on the German and French border where this French woman lived. Now, Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore is the regional entity for Pax Christi USA in our area. In our region, we also have a number of local Pax Christi groups, and we will be hearing a little about one of them at the end of this program. The St. John the Baptist Pax Christi group in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is the parish that Kim served as Social Concerns Director a few lifetimes ago. And anyone who is interested in either learning more about the Regional Council or any of our local groups stretching from Baltimore to Northern Virginia and places in between, please reach out to us via our website, or you can send an email to me. I just put my email address in the chat. A couple of other chat related items I want to say before we get started. At the end of tonight's program, we will be making just a few announcements regarding Pax Christi. And we're sure that a lot of you have other announcements that you would like to make, but for time reasons, we're asking anybody else who wants to make an announcement about any upcoming events to post them in the chat. And what we'll do then, sometime during the next week, we will put all those announcements out onto the Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore website, so people can see them. And so I just want to note also that this is the 14th year that Pax Christi Metro DC has named a Peacemaker of the Year. And we appreciate all the work for justice and peace that our many prior awardees and Kim have done to make the beloved community, the kingdom of God on earth, more of a reality than it was without their and our efforts. And for those of you who'd like to see the list of those prior awardees, they are on the Pax Christi Metro DC website, and I will put a link into the chat before we're finished. The last 3 years of awardees, though, still have to be updated on our website, so I'll just go through them quickly. One year we named 20 high school students as our awardees, and who became very active in gun violence prevention in the wake of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. Also in the last couple of years, we've two other people we've awarded. Malachi Kilbride, a well-known local and national peace and justice activist, and also Paul Magno, another well-known and long-standing peace activist. So those are the three people that we still need to add to our website. So again, thanks to all of you who have joined us tonight to honor Kim, and thanks to Kim and Luann for the nice PowerPoint. If somebody just joined us right now, you didn't see some of it that was played as people were coming aboard, and the Haitian music by the Resurrection Parish Choir in Burdensville, and the Haitian folk music. So let's get started with the actual ceremony. And so I'm going to ask Father Pierre, who's a longtime good friend of Kim's from Haiti, to introduce her. Father Pierre, if you could unmute yourself. Yeah, we can still have.
I can do it now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great.
I'm there.
Good.
Glad to be with you. And I just want to tell you before I start the presentation that the coffee roaster you see in the video is my wonderful mom, who is a very, very good coffee roaster in the whole Maneri. I have to tell you that I am a 27 Hall of Priesthood of the Diocese of Lekai. I am rector of the branch of UNDH, University of Our Lady of Haiti, in the south of Haiti. I am also co-founder of Just Haiti with Kim Lamberty. I am also teacher. I am very happy today to present Kim Lamberty. I met her in 1997 in Silver Spring, Maryland. I was pastor at this time of Baradere Parish in Haiti, the sister parish of St. John the Baptist in Silver Spring. We worked together during 6 years. We are friends for almost 25 years. We built a secondary school in Baradere, which is until now one of the best in Haiti after more than 20 years. After my mission in Baradere, I went to Paris, where I had my master in science of education. In 2007, Kim and me found Just Haiti, an organization who help the coffee growers in Baradere and some other places in Haiti, like Beladere, Leon, Caracas, Anse-des-Nord, and Léogane. We help them to better their life by buying their coffee and selling it in fair trade. They have back the profits of the coffee. We have also developed a scholarship program in Haiti for university studies. 10 students have already benefited of this program. Kim has been developing and managing faith-based justice, peace, cross-cultural, and community service program for over 25 years, and not just in Haiti. She just started as executive director of Quixote Center. Previously, she worked at Society of the Sacred Heart, United States and Canada province, as well as Catholic Relief Services and Christian Peacemakers teams. She has accompanied vulnerable communities and human rights workers in Haiti, in Colombia, in Palestine, in Guatemala, the US-Mexico border, and the former Soviet Union. She is the author of a book, Eyes from the Outside, Christian Missions in Zones of Violent Conflict, as well as several articles on Christian mission, and she is associate editor of the journal Missiology and International Review. She holds a master's in international affairs from Columbia University and a doctor of mission degree in cross-cultural ministry from Catholic Theological Union. We have a long experience of working together, and I hope you will be happy to hear her and profit of her world experience. May God bless you, and good luck, Kim.
Thank you, Father Pierre. That was a great introduction that you gave for your longtime friend, and thank you for all the good work that you are doing for the people of Haiti. So right now, I'm going to give the award certificate, virtually anyway, to Kim, make an announcement or two, and then we'll hand it over to Kim to respond. You cannot see this well, but here it is, and I'm just going to read it. And so it's the Peacemaker of the Year certificate, and it says, with profound admiration and gratitude, Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore is pleased to honor Kim Lamberty, D-Min, for her decades of promoting peace with justice in service to others. November 7th, 2021, on behalf of the Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore Council. So thank you very much, Kim. We're also going to be giving Kim this physical one and a modest check to thank her for her work that she could use however she would like to. So before, though, I hand it over to Kim, I just want to note that if anybody's got any questions about what Kim says or anything that happens today, please go to the chat and put your questions or comments or whatever in the chat. And if we have some time tonight, we'll go over a couple of the questions. Well, we're going to post all the questions on the Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore website sometime over the next week, and we'll have answers there. And we'll let you know. You could just Google Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore. So I think that does it for me. So Kim, could you please just share some of your thoughts with us?
Sure. Thanks so much. First, I just want to thank Pax Christi Metro DC-Baltimore for, for putting this lovely evening together and for recognizing, for this honor and for recognizing my work. It's really special to be recognized by your peers, and many of you I've worked with for a lot of years. So it is really special for me, and I want to thank you for it. And I want to also thank Pascal for being here. It's Father Pierre. It's not so easy to get your internet working that well in Haiti. So thanks so much for that, Pascal. And I know I have some friends and some family here tonight, and I got a lovely note from the St. John the Baptist Pax Christi team as well. So there's probably some people here from the Just Haiti team. There may be some people here from Quixote Center, and I really appreciate folks being here, and I'm feeling the love and sending it all back to you. So I was asked to talk for 20 minutes, and I don't plan to go over 20 minutes. I'm sure you'll all breathe a sigh of relief since it's Sunday night. I'm planning to look briefly at a history of racism and colonialism through the lens of Haiti and Haiti's history. So the idea is in part to refocus us on Haiti, given the current situation of extreme violence, food insecurity, vulnerability. And in talking about Haiti, I'm also going to talk about the ways in which a racist colonial economic system is still at play, and offer some thoughts about what we can be doing differently. So first, many of you here already know this, but just briefly about Haiti's history. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and landed on the island of what was called Haiti in the indigenous language. Columbus promptly renamed the island Hispaniola, and put a Spanish settlement there. And within 2 years, the indigenous Taino people, for the most part, were all dead. This was the legacy of the Spanish occupation of the island. By the late 1600s, Spain had ceded half of the island to the French. And the French proceeded to turn that part of the island into a giant coffee and sugar plantation. There were some other things planted as well, but coffee and sugar were the largest crops. And at that time, they provided they were the world's top producer of coffee and sugar and France's most profitable colony. They also received half of the Atlantic slave trade during that period. They also were famous for deforestation of high value trees and forced conversion to Catholicism of the Africans that they had enslaved. Catholicism representing European culture. And they were France's most profitable colony. In other words, this is a great statistic. 1 out of every 8 people in France derived their living from the coffee and sugar trade coming out of Haiti. And this was entirely dependent on the enslavement of Africans. I think it's important to remind ourselves that analogous stories happened in other European colonies. We're talking mostly about Haiti tonight. Haiti was one of the most profitable, but the other European countries also earned extraordinary profits through colonizing and pilfering and enslaving Africans and indigenous. This is where European wealth came from. The same wealth that, for example, provided funding for religious orders and missionary work, right? So the Haitian Revolution began as a slave rebellion that ultimately defeated Napoleon's army to form the first Black Republic in the Western Hemisphere in 1804. Thomas Jefferson promptly responded by imposing a trade embargo, and the US refused to recognize Haiti until 1862. France cut off all trade until the Haitian government agreed to pay them reparations for lost human and territorial property. So Haiti went from the most profitable place, right, to a situation of destitution from which it has not recovered. There's a lot more to the story, such as US occupation, US support for dictators, US interference in democratic elections, US treatment of migrants fleeing an untenable situation. All of these things continue to oppress the people of Haiti. And by the way, not unlike our history in other Latin American countries, many of whom also have not recovered from what was done to them during the colonial period. So I want to just be really clear. European colonialism was based in an ideology of white supremacy and an economic system that enriched some people at the expense of vast forced labor. Because if they had to pay people, they would not have gotten nearly so rich. One can draw parallels to today, because paying substandard wages or paying low prices for natural resources from vulnerable countries still makes some people very rich and others very poor. So now let's jump ahead to today, a situation where Haitians frequently refer to their own country as the Republic of NGOs. I call it the poverty industrial complex. Economically vulnerable countries such as Haiti are also home to many of the natural resources required to sustain the lifestyles of wealthier countries. Coffee, of course, is one of them. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, you'll see why I got into the coffee business. Obviously, there are many other commodities that one could focus on. So what I'm about to say is a bit of an oversimplification, unfiltered oversimplification to make a point. The economic system that we are all functioning in is focused on maximizing shareholder wealth. Companies buy natural resources or the labor it takes to produce their product at the lowest possible amount they can and sell the finished product for the highest possible amount they can, keeping the profits from those sales for themselves and their shareholders, which are often, frankly, one and the same. They get cheap labor and resources from vulnerable communities and countries who are kept in a permanent state of need because they're never paid enough to live on, right? Consumers, meaning me and you and all of us, we're complicit in this system because we're conditioned to pay the lowest amount we possibly can for the goods that we consume. In other words, consumers in the US are actually not accustomed to paying the full value of the things that we consume because it's based on exploited labor. So we do this often without doing the work to understand the impact on labor, as well as on the producers of resources such as coffee. This whole system takes an environmental toll as well because resources get extracted in the cheapest manner possible, often without regard to its impact on the planet. Obviously, there are exceptions to this, both on the industry and on the consumption side. But by and large, this is what we are dealing with in terms of how wealth is generated. Wealth is generated from profits. And the producers and the workers, by and large, don't get them. So the NGOs come in to mop up the mess in poor countries and communities, trying to bridge the gap between what people are getting paid for goods and services and what they actually need to live on. NGOs raise money from these exact same people. In other words, many of the same people who are profiting off of poverty. And by the way, there's a lot of money to be made off of poverty, which is why we still have it. So just as an example, let's take the coffee industry. Most of us probably drink it. I certainly do. Coffee is a top export from economically vulnerable countries, so it is worth looking at, aside from the fact that the US consumes an awful lot of it. It impacts 25 million small-scale growers, or about 100 million people total if you count the entire family. Although most coffee is grown on large plantations owned by wealthy landholders. The current international price for coffee is between $2 and $3 a pound, which is actually quite high by historical standards. In most cases, that money goes to a plantation owner, who pays very low wages or sometimes none to hired labor for what is actually very difficult work. We know that there is slave labor in the coffee supply chain, in particular in Brazil, and Brazil is the top global exporter of coffee. In some cases, when small farmers have formed cooperatives, they get a larger portion of that money, but a chunk of it still goes to the co-op to pay for its own expenses and salaries, and they're not getting the profits, right? And so think about it, how much do you pay for a pound of coffee? Studies have shown that the bulk of the income from coffee sales in the US and in the US goes to large scale roasters. That's where the profit is going. So people making these profits give from their excess, tend to give from their excess to NGOs or nonprofit organizations who then use a whole lot of that money to pay their own salaries, frankly, and to create the infrastructure needed to deliver aid, which means paying for offices, trucks, warehouses, computers, those types of things, in addition to their salaries, which can be very substantial. It's very hard, I have found, to find information about how much actual cash gets into the hands of people in need, because organizations include their own salaries and infrastructure into their reported program costs. So I say to myself, what would happen if we just took all that money and gave it to people in need? What would happen? And the answer is people know perfectly well what to do with it, right? And instead, and this might sound a little, but instead we've developed a jobs creation program for people such as myself. It's an industry that depends on poverty to survive, and a whole lot of jobs are at stake, many of them connected to churches. And obviously there are good ones out there. I do think though that, my point is to get us to think this through. I have heard Haitians point this out so many times, that money gets raised for Haiti and it doesn't go to Haiti, it goes to aid workers. And my question is, how is this system that I've just spent the last couple of minutes describing, how is it not still colonialism? It still feels like colonialism to me. So people kept in a permanent state of need will take action to support and protect themselves and their families. If they have the opportunity, they will migrate to a place where they think they have a better chance of making a living. And so we're seeing the huge cost of the poverty industrial complex at our borders and at borders around the globe, because what's happening at the US-Mexico border is very small compared to what's happening in Africa, home to the largest refugee camps in the world. Economically vulnerable people also join armed groups as a way to resolve their lives. In Colombia, I had conversations with people who simply said that young people are joining armed groups because they have no other economic opportunity. And studies have been done that confirm that this dynamic exists elsewhere, that young people in particular will join armed groups if they think they do not have other decent options for making a living. This is true in the US as well as it is in Haiti, Colombia, Palestine, and Guatemala. And I'm naming those countries because those are the ones I have the most experience in. Many of our interventions into this dynamic, and I mean interventions by aid agencies, interventions through advocacy, various interventions that take place into this dynamic in order to alleviate the damage done, right? Mopping up the mess without addressing the root cause of the damage. We have the best of intentions, right? When we work to change US immigration policy, or when we provide support for migrant camps, or we oppose the sale of weapons, or we do gang intervention work. And obviously we have to do those things. And it's not likely that these symptoms of a much larger problem are going away anytime soon. So of course we have to intervene at that level. According to the gospel, and everyone has this quote memorized, the poor you will always have with you. The poor we will always have with us because there will always be natural disasters or pandemics or other catastrophes that befall us. Like, that's the human condition. We live in a state of insecurity, and there's always going to be a need for a selfless response to those in need. So I'm not trying to say that all aid is bad. And during my time at Catholic Relief Services, I did see some really great examples of aid at work. But the conditions that we see right now, extreme endemic poverty in places like Haiti, widespread food insecurity, violence, and a global migration crisis, these things do not always have to be with us. In order for those things to not always be with us, we need to get beyond addressing the symptoms and get to the actual causes. Pope Paul VI, right? If you want peace, work for justice. He was right. He just didn't come up with the remedy, or at least not the complete remedy. At the end of Populorum Progressio, he advised everyone to contribute to aid agencies. That was his remedy. And I'm saying we have to get beyond that. Similar, by the way, to what the liberation theologians have said, that we have to get beyond that. Frequently, when we say we are addressing the root cause, what we are actually doing is shoring up the poverty industrial complex, instead of focusing on dismantling the systems and structures that will lead to significantly increased income generation for vulnerable families and communities. In other words, and I'm using another example, it's not good enough to develop an industrial campus in northern Haiti, which is what the Clintons did, if the jobs don't pay well enough to live on and local farmers are displaced. It's not enough to develop a coffee program in a vulnerable community if all the growers get is $1 or $2 a pound, because that doesn't help anyone except for the roasters in the US. Truthfully, I don't even like using the term root cause anymore, because I feel like it's been co-opted by people who say they're addressing the root causes and they aren't actually. People are poor because they don't have enough money or assets to generate money. This isn't rocket science. If society wanted to fix this, it would. The problem is that really fixing it would require economic sacrifice. And it doesn't seem like the people who would have to make that sacrifice, they don't seem willing to do it. So what would that sacrifice look like? And the example I have is just Haiti, that Pascal talked about in his introduction of me, and that a group of us formed together. And there's 9 people on the Just Haiti team, and we are all volunteers. We formed it intentionally in such a way that none of us was going to make any money off of it. And instead, we were going to make sure that income was going to be maximized for coffee growers in Haiti. So the organization is run by a team of 9 volunteers, a number of whom I think are probably on this call. And we pay upfront the highest in the business, in the coffee business, to the growers. And it goes directly to the growers. The associations that they all belong to take out a tiny amount to cover their own costs. And Just Haiti takes out 5% to cover our costs of doing business. And the rest goes back to the growers. So every single profit that we make from the sale of coffee in the US goes right back to the growers. And here's what they say. First of all, it's, the profits are a huge benefit to them. They say that with this money, they're able to send their kids to school and pay for it themselves. And they say that they're able to do things like cover the cost of medical care or funerals or clothing themselves, right? Without being dependent on aid agencies. And they say they're able to do things like improve their plots of land so that they can plant more crops so that they are less food insecure. So they're able to do things like that, and they're able to do it themselves. And in addition, the grower associations themselves help people in need in their community when something bad happens. So that's what they're able to do with the amount of money that they get. And that's what it takes to get people from a situation of destitution to a situation where they are actually artisans of their own destiny. I'm quoting the Pope, who's quoting liberation theologians. And what we're doing at Just Haiti is another level of ethics, really, than what you see practiced by, out there by even some of the most progressive nonprofits, because we're saying we refuse to take the money. People tell me it's unsustainable. I hear that all the time. This is unsustainable. And I say, my answer to that is really? So exactly what is it going to take concretely for us to reverse and dismantle a racist colonial economic system? What exactly is it going to take? Because what we're doing at Just Haiti is, at least in part, of what it's going to take. We are dismantling the system, literally. And what would happen if everyone did it? So a shout out to the awesome Just Haiti board. I'm sure some of you are here. It's a great community of volunteers. It's a huge privilege to work with them. And each person on that team makes a personal sacrifice to do this work. It's a lot of work to run an organization, and we do it together and we have fun. Community, everyone knows this, community is what makes this work fun as well as sustainable, right? And we have developed this great community over the years. And by the way, you can buy our coffee at justhaiti.org. The Quixote Center, where I just took over as executive director, is engaging in some similar, what I would say, cutting edge work in another part of Haiti, which does not involve coffee or experts, but does involve agricultural development. I just started there, but my expectation is that it will be just as much fun. I'm sure that many of you already buy fair trade products. Unfortunately, not all fair trade is alike. If your favorite fair trade company advertises that it's using its profits to install a water system in its producer communities, then in all honesty, they're still part of the poverty industrial complex. Why aren't they paying their growers enough so that the community can purchase and maintain its own water system? So buy fair trade, it's a huge step in the right direction, but buy it with a discerning eye and ask questions, right? Ask questions about how the proceeds are used and ask questions about how much producers are getting paid. There are other things we can do that most of you already know about, such as supporting local farmers, purchasing from Black and Brown owned businesses, doing business with registered B Corps. I would just say that each one of us, I feel like each one of us needs to be extremely intentional about this as an act of anti-racism, as an act of violence prevention, and as a means to dismantle an unjust economic system. Unfortunately, it's not really enough, because the vast majority of CEOs are never going to give up their lucrative salaries for the sake of a better standard of living for workers and producers. And we're seeing that right now play out in US politics. This issue can be addressed through the tax code. And you talk about the tax code and people's eyes glaze over, but the reality is we have a tax code that favors the wealthy because of the low rates levied against capital gains, right? The incentive is for greater and greater income through stock because it isn't taxed all that much. De-incentivize it through the tax code. Obviously, it's not going well. But my point is getting involved in advocacy on tax issues as well as wage issues is also part of what can happen in terms of dismantling this system. There are lots of other ideas and suggestions that I'm sure many of you could add to this. One of the points I'm trying to make is that I think at least part of our cutting edge work right now is focusing on the economic system. While many folks in wealthy countries such as our own are doing well, the gap between rich and poor has gotten astronomical in the last few decades. And the point of talking about Just Haiti is to say that there are things we can do concretely that directly impact people's lives. Luann Mostello told me that she hoped my presentation would spark interest and engagement with Haiti on the part of Pax Christi, and I hope that too. And at the same time, Haiti has, as I said before, Haiti already has way too many NGO actors from the US. My perspective on this is that instead of establishing more siloed projects, we would do a better job in Haiti if we all worked in partnership, pooling our resources to support cutting edge work that dismantles an unjust, oppressive economic system. Through partnerships, Just Haiti has worked to replicate our model with some great successes and some failures as well. We learn from our failures and we try to do better the next time. I would really like to replicate the Quixote Center's work in other communities as well. And I think I saw Sissy Kaur on this call. I worked with the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur project in Lakai that established a local bakery. I would like to see that project replicated in other communities. Given the violence, insecurity, vulnerability to natural disasters, Haiti remains a challenging place to work. And at the same time, given the history of racism, colonialism, and exploitation on the part of the US, it seems to me that Haiti is exactly where we belong. And I'm gonna stop there.
Well, thank you very much, Kim. That was tremendous. We really appreciate your comments. You gave us a lot of food for thought. We certainly do need to work a lot harder to allow everybody who's living on this planet to have a living wage and a way to do it, and that'll take a great change in our economic systems all over the world. But thank you for showing us the path forward on this. So right now we have a couple of minutes. We probably have about 5 minutes that we could take some questions. And I think Kurt Hansen or Bob Moore are going to be looking at the chat. And if one of you gentlemen could bring up a question for Kim then.
Yeah, thanks. Great presentation, Kim. First question is, do you have any thoughts on the connection between the people of Haiti and Palestine?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I would just say that there's a couple of connections. One is the fact that that young people in Palestine are also looking for a way to resolve their lives because of a lack of economic opportunity, because of the blockade and the embargo. So there's limited economic activity in Palestine, and that is part of what fuels the violence. So, and there's some great, by the way, some great fair trade companies working in Palestine to try to address that issue.
Thank you. Is there a program for direct aid to Haiti? The questioner said that he's heard of some programs in Africa.
You mean giving cash? Yeah. Yes, there are some programs of just direct cash assistance. Just direct cash, yes. Just Haiti does some of that actually, but there's an entity called the Haiti Response Coalition that both Just Haiti and the Quixote Center are a part of, that is doing some direct cash right now as a result of the most recent earthquake, and there are some others. So yes, it exists.
Okay. A couple comments. One way to dismantle the economic system and military machine that protects its profits is to refuse to pay the federal taxes which fund the whole immoral system. And another comment with a question, President Aristide was overthrown because he wanted to change the economic system in Haiti. Have you gotten to know Aristide on your trips to Haiti?
I don't know him personally, but yeah, I was kind of referring to that. I didn't want to go through the entire history of US intervention in Haiti, but part of what we did was intervene in what was, you know, a very hopeful time for Haiti.
How can we improve the availability of education opportunities in Haiti? is this still a promotion of poverty?
So I'm not sure I totally understand the question. How can we improve? And in fact, Pascal's way better placed to answer that question. What I can say is, you know, the Catholic school system in Haiti is extremely dependent on the Catholic Church in the US, because the vast majority of sister parishes in the US are funding the Catholic school system. And the problem with that, from my perspective, is that what we need to do is develop a plan for sustainability so that parents can pay the tuition for their own kids rather than being dependent on outside aid to keep the schools open. And that's my point about Just Haiti's growers being able to pay the school fees for their kids themselves, because they have enough money. And in the end, that's the way to keep a school system sustainable, is when people can pay for it. So it's all part of the same issue, I would say.
Kim, how would you rate Catholic Relief Services in its Haiti work?
So I feel like that's a really, I'm not even comfortable answering that question, only because I feel like it would take, because the program is large and multifaceted, and it would take a really long explanation to go into it. And I'm not comfortable answering that in a short answer. I could answer it in a long answer, but I'm not comfortable in a short answer.
Sure, I understand. Are micro lending groups like Kiva operating in Haiti, and are they helpful?
So Kiva in Haiti is called Foncose, and Foncose is hugely important. Foncose provides a banking system for people that otherwise would not have access to the banking system. And Just Haiti uses Foncose for distributing funds to producer groups. So yes, they are operative in Haiti. The difficulty with microfinance is that the interest rates charged for micro loans tend to be quite high. And so for people who are extremely, extremely vulnerable, they can't afford to pay the interest. So Just Haiti actually has a loan program, but it's interest free. We don't charge interest because we feel like, you know, it's actually what they meant in the Old Testament by usury, right? The richest people in the world charging interest to the poorest people in the world, and we don't do it. So that's the problem with microfinance for the extreme poor, is that the interest rates can often be too high. That's not to say it doesn't play a role. It plays a hugely important role.
This may be related with some form.
This could be the last question. These are great questions, but if we could, this was the last one.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. They're coming fast.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Yeah.
With some form of venture capital investment model, one accepting a lower return work.
Possibly. I mean, there's a sense in which that's what we did. You know, we invested without being concerned about a return. So I think yes, but the you know, it's in the details of that. Yeah.
Well, as you say, we have several other questions, so we'll save those and share them with you, get some responses, and post those on the website. Thank you very much.
Great, yes. Thanks everybody for those great questions, and Bob and Kim, and we'll go further. So right now we'd like to do a short litany, a remembrance, a presente for some people who have gone before us. So if we could go ahead with that.
Yes, it has been a tradition at the Peacemaker of the Year event to remember the martyrs at the University of Central America in El Salvador. The university had become a stronghold of opposition to human rights abuses committed by the US-backed military there. And on November 16th, 1989, a military force massacred 6 Jesuits, their housekeeper, and her teenage daughter. So presente means present in Spanish, And the Presente litany has been used in Latin America for centuries as a way to commemorate the lives and contributions of people, especially those who've been killed by acts of political repression. A Presente litany honors social justice activists by acknowledging that they are with you in spirit as you continue to work for justice. So after the name of the honoree is read, each of us, wherever we are, will respond, Presente. We honor Father Ignacio Ellacuria, Presente. We honor Father Ignacio Martín Barrón, Presente. We honor Father Segundo Montes Mozo, Presente. We honor Father Armando López Quintana, Presente. We honor Father Joaquín López y López, Presente. We honor Father Juan Ramón Moreno Pardo, Presente. We honor Elba Julia Ramos, Presente. We honor Celina Maricet Ramos, Presente. We honor the people of Central and South America. Many have surrendered their lives because they believed in the dignity of the human person, because they stood in solidarity with the poor and the oppressed, and because they believed in reconciliation and peace over violence. So for the people of Central America and South America, Presente. We honor the people of Haiti. They led the Americas in the struggle against slavery, and though they were the first to win freedom, their struggles have never ceased. They have carried the cross of environmental and climate injustices. They have persevered in difficult times with generous hearts and spirits. For the people of Haiti, Presente. Tonight we honor all those we have mentioned and many others who are unnamed or who are unknown to us, who have joined in past struggles for justice around the world. All of them, Presente. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And for those of you who don't know Dan, that was Dan Moriarty. Dan's with the Marino Office for Global Concerns. He's one of our council members, and he spent about a decade or so in Bolivia.
Almost two.
Almost two. Thank you for the correction of that. It's an important one. So what we're going to do now again is we're going to just do very few announcements, and we're sorry about that because we do want to try to end this as close to 8 o'clock as possible. So if you do have any announcements you'd like to make, please go into the chat. So first up, I'd like to introduce Ronnie Fellworth Lowell, and she's the leader of the St. John the Baptist Pax Christi group. And again, that was a parish where Kim was the social concerns director many years ago. So Ronnie.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations, Kim. The people of St. John the Baptist certainly remember you. We would like to invite everyone present to join our Pax Christi St. John the Baptist group, particularly at the next meeting, where we will have a follow-up discussion on Kim's talk. And you're welcome to join us anytime or on a one-time basis. I have put my email in the chat if you would like the Zoom link, and I'll put it in once again. And so just email me if you would like to join us at the next meeting on Monday, November 15th at 7:15 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. The next announcement we want to make concerns Pax Christi USA. And I just want to note that one of the people who has been here with us is Johnny Zakovich, the new executive director of Pax Christi USA. He's doing a great job. He spent the weekend at the Ignatian Family Teach-In with some of his staff. So we're going to ask Charlene Howard to make an announcement about 2022 and the 50th anniversary of Pax Christi USA. And before I hand it over to Charlene, I just want to note that Charlene is a member of the Pax Christi Metro DC-Baltimore Council and the Pax Christi USA National Council. And she was just elected to be the chair of the National Council. So we think that's great, and we thank you for it. Charlene, if you could give a couple words about next year, the 50th anniversary of Pax Christi USA.
Thank you, Bob, and congratulations to Kim once again. A recognition well deserved. Yes, definitely want everyone to get excited that in 2022, we are celebrating 50 years of Pax Christi USA in particular. And what we want people to do is to really begin to celebrate now, even within your local groups. The celebration, as was said, is for 50 years, and we know that you've contributed to that through the many activities that you've had in participating in national efforts, but also your local efforts. So celebrate those, make them known, and let us know at the national office what those are, so we can make those a part of the activities as well to highlight them in August. Yes. The dates for the conference and 50th celebration is August 5th through the 7th, and it will be here locally in Arlington, Virginia at the DoubleTree Hilton Hotel. So there is no reason you cannot be there. So please make your plans now. Also, we invite you to assist the U.S. Pax Christi USA in fundraising efforts toward defraying the costs for the conference. So if you're interested in that, also contact Pax Christi USA to ask about and or offer any ways that you want to help defray those costs for that conference. So please come, please participate, please celebrate, and we look forward to seeing you in August.
Thank you very much, Charlene. And Charlene's obviously going to be a very busy woman over the next year. She's head of religion at Carroll High School, and I guess that wasn't keeping her busy enough. So she's going to be working 80 to 100 hours a week, I'm sure, for the next year. But thank you for all you do, Charlene. Okay, so the last quick announcement I'll make is that if anybody does want to know a little bit more about Pax Christi Metro DC, we're going to have our annual membership meeting next month on Saturday morning, December 4th at 11:30. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. And if anybody's not on our mailing list already, just contact us. I have my email address there, or you could go to the Pax Christi Metro DC Baltimore website and see the contact stuff. So again, it's 7:59, I think. So we're ready to do a close, and I'm going to ask Kurt to try to put up the vow of nonviolence on the screen. And so the vow of nonviolence was written by Eileen Egan, a good friend of Dorothy Day and Father John Deere. And it's a type of thing that people shouldn't just take lightly. So what we'd like to do as we leave, we'd like everybody just to, in silence, once or twice, read over the vow of non-violence and sort of see, how does it talk to you? Would you be ready to make it in that vow to God in your heart? Or if you're not, what's holding you back from it? And we urge you to also go to the Pax Christi USA website and look up the vow of nonviolence, and there's a little bit more information. So I'm going to formally close right now, but we're going to keep this screen up for a number of minutes so people could just meditate on it for a few minutes, and whenever you're ready, you could just leave. But thank you again, all of you, for coming and really helping to honor a great peacemaker, and I missed Kim Lamberty. So peace be with everybody, and please just silently read and meditate on the vow of nonviolence.
Thank all of you for coming tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.